Hello and welcome to Frank's School. My dog, she's a sweet thing. Come here, girl. She's a sweet thing, and she'll lose the fight if she gets in a fight with these cats. Anyway, back to class vocabulary. Come here, girl. Come here. I would scare her if I... Come on. I'd like you to see her, but... Good girl. Anyway, class vocabulary, I still have had no participation that I know of, so here's a sentence from Frank. He says, the king of the brooding carpenter's city wore a diadem as he entered through yon portals. Yes, good. And this is the city of the carpenters, it's plural, so the apostrophe goes after the S, and he's still working off that first sentence that we had. All right, good. I'll do a second take here. Second shot, and put 3 new words up. See you directly. Hello, I'm back. This is my second shot, 105th day class vocabulary. This will be the last 3 words of the week. Actually, it's going to be 4, as you'll see. And I'm working with a fantasy class out there. Paige is the name of my dog. Maybe I'll make her part of my fantasy class. Sure. But I wanted to tell you something else about actually running class vocabulary. Lots of times kids are not all that cooperative. Maybe you teachers have noticed that before. And maybe I could say especially 7th and 8th graders. 8th graders, woo, sometimes they were tough. But anyway, if they would not cooperate with class vocabulary on a volunteer basis, it was a shame because they were missing the fun and the excitement of words. But if necessary, what I would do would be I'd get the words, or I'd even give the words, and I'll say, okay, you look it up. Sorry, there's a dictionary at every desk. You look it up. Get yourself ready. On Friday, you're going to have to use it in a sentence, and it's going to have to prove to me that you know what it means and be spelled right. That I didn't have to do that very often, but that took a lot. And then I'd sit down and I'd just keep it quiet for about 10 minutes while they do the work themselves. Not nearly as much fun as doing it orally. And another thing about the fun of doing this orally is with a cooperative class. Frank, I'd get him up here. I'd say, hey, Frank, you run this. You know what's going on. And I'd sit down and I'd watch. And I wouldn't grade him. I wouldn't even give him credit for it because it was fun. And kids, they did like to do that, although I'd give them the zap power. You know, in case the class got ornery with the student up there, I'd say, look, if Paige gives you trouble, just go zap, and I'll make a little mark in the book. Well, that was a bluff. You weren't allowed, and I think rightly so, you weren't allowed to let a student's behavior in class affect his grade. Behavior and academic performance were kept separate, but it worried the kids a little bit, and I usually would get away with that bluff. So anyway, the student up here running it had the zap power. All right. Anyway, ideally though, the kids would get into this and they'd like it. All right. Who's got a word? Well, Frank's got words. He says, "Oh, I got 3 words in one sentence altogether," says Frank. Okay, but because here's Susie. She's all excited. Susie has a word, and I'm only going to take 4 and 3. And but Frank says, "Yeah, but I got the 3." But Frank's a gentleman. He says, "All right, Susie, go ahead." Susie, what's your word? Maverick. Mavericks. Now I write it down if I get it spelled right. Yep, mavericks. 3 syllables. I'll take that. Where's the stressed syllable? Maverick. So I go around. Here it is. What's the context? We don't want any mavericks. Okay, part of speech, and the kids should be able to guess correctly. This is a noun. Where'd you get that word, Susie? Well, I was watching YouTube, and you, Mr. Anderson, we're talking about James Burke and the education process, and the word came up. Actually, that may be in tomorrow's video or something. I'm not sure, but anyway, okay, good. Mavericks. Anybody know what it means? And some student might say, well, there was a television show, I remember, a Western, it was called Maverick. And there was a movie, Maverick. Well, what is a maverick? Well, it was this guy. Yeah, but this isn't capitalized, this isn't his name. What's a maverick? And I'm guessing it would be unlikely that a 7th or 8th grader would know that word. And so I'd go to Susie and she'd say, it's a calf that's not been branded, or especially a motherless calf. Or it can mean well, see, I've got it here. I mean, I looked it up, but I just remember it. Or it can mean a person who does not go along with the group. All right, let's say person not going along with the group. And of course, I had taught kids how to write notes quickly with group, and I'm always trying to go as concise as I can. Who does not go, not going is quicker. Person not going along with group. Mavericks. Oh, persons. I better make this plural because this is persons not going along with the group. Oddballs. You know, I could maybe even. I mean, I'm not sure if that's one word or two. We had fun with the words. We had a lot of fun with class vocabulary over the years. All right, anybody guess the etymology? Well, there's no way that they would guess the etymology. I have looked it up, and they might guess Greek, Latin. It's none of those. As a matter of fact, they think, according to Susie, they think it comes from a guy named Samuel Maverick, an American, 1870 or something like that, who did not brand his cattle, his calves. They think it came from his name. A very unusual etymology. So, maybe I just write down here name. That happens sometimes. That the word guy, G-U-I, I think came from somebody's name. All right, thank you, Susie. All right, Frank, what are your words? With ribaldry, pomp, and game. Frank's so proud of this. Ribaldry, pomp, and game. All right. Where'd you get that, Frank? And I'll just tell you, it comes from that Christmas carol that I studied, Oh, List to the Story That Never Grows Old. And I said it wasn't old like the rest of the Christmas carols, but I thought it was inspired. The world is so dull and the world is so dead, with ribaldry, pomp, and gain. But like the foul stable where cattle are fed, so life has become profane. A really neat poem, I think. All right, ribaldry, pomp, and gain. Let's go with ribaldry first. Am I pronouncing it right? Did I spell it right? Yep. Am I pronouncing it right? Ribaldry. It could be ribaldry, ribaldry. When I've had choirs sing this before, we had to stop on that word because they didn't know this word. Ribaldry. It's the first syllable that's stressed. And ribaldry, okay. And the part of speech, well, this clearly is here we've got a with, and there's 3 objects of the preposition. These are objects of prepositions. It's a list. So ribaldry, pomp, gain. Pretty clearly they're all nouns. All right, with ribaldry, pomp, and gain. Does anybody know what ribaldry means? I can't imagine that they would, even in this context. Ribaldry. So, all right, Frank, what's it mean? Well, it means to be like a ribald, or to be ribald. Well, okay, see, when you look it up, ribaldry, in the dictionary, they use the word ribald to explain it. The presence of a ribald person, or using ribald language. So what's ribald? And it means coarse or offensive. So let's see. To define ribaldry, use of crude language or behavior. I think use of crude language, ribaldry. And if somebody is ribald, they are crude. They are offensive. And the etymology, anybody? They'd be all over the place, I imagine, guessing on this. And Frank comes up with it ultimately. The etymology is, well, it was interesting. I can just remember it. I won't take the time to look it up. It comes from French, but not then on from Latin. It is of Germanic origin. And if I'm not mistaken, I will look at this. The Germanic word originally, I think, meant something to do with hunting. Ribald. It meant no, I was wrong about the hunting. But it is it's related to Old High German, and it's related to the Greek word which means to twist. Or in German it meant to twist, and in Greek it meant to throw. A ribald. Okay, so what to do with that? Well, I guess I'd say Old French, because after that it gets a little bit harder. And incidentally, I did not normally, or almost ever, make the kids memorize the etymology. This was what Doc Blanchard called frosting on the vocabulary cake. This was the most delightful part of class vocabulary, to look into where do these words come from. So largely for fun, although the kids did have to find it. If they didn't have that, I think when I graded this, there were 7 points. A word correctly spelled, pronounced correctly, a context, the right part of speech, a definition that you understood, and the etymology. Oh, and the documentation. You had to be ready to say, where did you get that word? So there were 7 duties involved in this, and I graded it as such. And when I couldn't do it strictly for the fun and the love of it, I then would ultimately collect papers where students had all this stuff written out, and I'd look at them and I'd grade them. Although those that present, like Frank, he's loaded. He's into it. Pomp. All right, pomp. Anyone? It's a noun, only one syllable. Anyone know what pomp is? Somebody might know. Somebody might say, well, isn't there at graduation, don't they play something called pomp and circumstance? Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, that's pomp and circumstance. So what is pomp? I doubt if the kids would know. And pomp is showiness. Let me look and see what the dictionary says. Of course, Frank would have it there. Not there. Not there. Here it is, pomp. Splendor, a show of magnificence. An ostentation. I guess to make it simple, I'd write down a big show. A big show. I don't guarantee that the kids have the right definition. The point is to be able to use the word correctly, not to be able to define it. They got no credit at all for telling me that pomp meant a big show. No, it's to use the word. And I think I made that clear earlier. And the etymology of pomp, I would let kids guess, of course, and it goes back to Middle English. It got there from Middle French. It got there from Latin. And it got into Latin from Greek. First appeared in the 14th century in English. So this would be Greek. And gain. Now, the kids might know gain if you gain weight. But the thing is, here it's a noun. What is gain? What when it names something? Gain weight, you do that. It's a verb. But what is gain? Here is a gain. Here is gain. Well, Frank would explain. But before he does, I would say that this is what's called a mass noun. You don't have one gain. You have a certain amount of gain. Like you don't have one sugar. You have lots of sugar. That sugar is also a mass noun, which I taught about back in the first year when I was going through morphology. But anyway, gain, so what is it? And Frank would say, well, it's profit. It's something that you get. Profit. And write down, if you don't understand that, kids, write down something that you get. And the etymology of gain, what's that, Frank? And, whoops, uh-oh, I don't think I looked at it. Yeah, I did look it up, but I don't want to take the time. I'm almost certain that it comes from Old French, gagner. Gagner is to gain, and it might, I just don't remember. But I don't want to take too long with this. All right, good. We've got 13 words. Anyone put maverick in a sentence? Elizabeth, she feels left out. She says, I am a maverick. And I would probably say, no, wait, that's not enough. That could mean a very normal person. But probably I would play with that, and I'd say, Elizabeth, I know you, and you're right. Since I know you, I'd say, yep, you understand the word, because you are indeed a maverick. I might say, I don't know. But normally, I would want a sentence like, they kicked the maverick out of the club. Aha, there you go. Ribaldry. Frank, he loves these words. For his ribaldry, the student was sent to the office. Good. Good. How about pomp? The student, Susie picks up on what Frank says and said the student left the room with pomp. He made a big show as he walked out of the room. Yeah, sure, that's okay. And I would take 2 or 3 sentences, just not here. How about gain? Oh man, there's a Shakespearean quote comes to mind. Where is no pleasure taken? That's from The Taming of the Shrew. What would be the purpose of studying a lot if there's no gain from it? Yeah, good, Page. All right, anybody put 2 in one sentence? The maverick used ribaldry. Okay, I guess that's enough for each one. Anybody else? How about ribaldry and pomp? After his ribaldry, he left the classroom with pomp. Okay, I guess. Gain. The student found out that there was no gain to be had from his ribaldry. Good. How about all 4 in one sentence, or 3? And for the last time, I'm going to say nope, not in this. Not in this. I'll wait to see if I get a comment. And your quiz on these 13 words will not be the next time. I'll review them and show you what I expect of you, and then the quiz will come. So I hope this hasn't been too long. Tomorrow we go back to James Burke. Bye for now.